Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Nick here, and I'm hanging out with Alex Diaz.
Right.
Alex is our Midtown Campus Pastor, and just got a chance to hang out with him and eat some Venezuelan food, which is where Alex is from. And so it's an awesome experience, and we had some good conversation that I wanted to share with you guys. So check this out.
I'm here with my friend Nick, and we're about to dive into some delicious Venezuelan arepas. I am from Venezuela originally, and this is the kind of food that I had growing up. Now I can find the ingredients here in Indianapolis and almost anywhere in the States. So I can actually survive now that I can have this on a weekly basis.
So this is a staple, is what you're saying?
Oh, it's more than a staple. I mean, this is almost a religious experience.
Okay. All
Now,
right.
these they're made of corn dough, and there are many different combinations. And just to give you an example, there are funny names for each combination. The one that there's one with white rice and black beans. We call that a domino.
Okay.
Because it resembles the pieces of domino, white and black.
Okay.
We have another one that is shredded chicken with some mayo and it's stewed, and we call that, and some yellow cheese. We call that a blondie. So there are many different combinations, but this is 101. These combinations here. It's going to be a simple ham and cheese for a part of one. We're going to use another part of that for this deviled ham. Now, I like to tell people that it's called deviled ham because it's made in hell.
Yes.
But it's not. That's not the reason for the name. I don't know why they call it that way. I think it has to do with the way they package the ham.
Okay.
And of course, I put some jelly here because you can also have it sweet, not just salty or savory. So we're gonna try different combinations. Now, the way that this works is you take your arepa, you take your knife, you gently stab your arepa.
So we're like making a sandwich almost.
Yes, you're like making a sandwich. Now you want to stab, but not all the way through. You want to stop right here at about 90%, and then you begin to rotate so that you can open your arepa in like this. But you want to leave some. You want to leave a connection here between the two pieces.
Okay.
See? And then, it's okay if it falls apart. It's fine. It happens all the time.
It's my first arepa.
It's your first arepa, so it's totally fine. Then,
good.
yeah, it's good. And even if it's not, I mean, I've been making them for decades, and they fall apart all the time.
So I remember I was listening to a podcast one time where a guy was talking about how every culture almost has, and you said this earlier off camera, like almost any culture has a version of this, like
Yes.
a corn.
Yeah.
Like my grandpa, when we would go camping, he would make us eat corn mush, and as kids we thought it was like, we'd be like, oh, come on, but then we'd always eat it, like it would always get eaten.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, just for some reason in cultures there's like a lot of different versions of this type of like cornmeal type of mixture.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think the gastronomy that you find in Latin America, for example, is a combination of many cultures. It's got influence from the Western African cultures that were part of Latin America and have been for centuries, combined with the local indigenous culture and even some European culture that has been brought into. So almost everything we do is a melting pot of all that together, which makes me picture heaven the way that we're all going to be. Now, of course, you know, the circumstances of that, a lot of history that goes behind that, but the result is we have this wonderful gastronomy. So you're gonna put a slice of cheese, and then the ham, and then close it, and then that's gonna be our first bite.
Going for it.
And
Okay.
then fold it, and
Fold it.
3, 2, 1.
Oh yeah.
Not good? This, I can smell and taste my childhood with every bite. Now, I burned this when I was making it, but I like the burn.
Yeah. You get a good toast on it.
This is how it's supposed to look, yeah.
Yeah.
I fry these. That warmth, when you open the arepa, just releases the steam and the smell, the aroma. It penetrates your clothes, the room, and you stink like it all day long. But it's a heavenly stink.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
I was thinking similar things because I was talking about my grandpa like this. I smell that corn hash or corn mush type. So yeah, very similar.
You know what's similar to this is grits, which is really interesting to see similarities between how people eat in different countries. And I think that's a testament to history, globalization, migration patterns, even war, and that's why we have a lot of this today. So, for example, one thing that I grew up with was sweet plantains, and we fry our sweet plantains. And I was having dinner with a friend from Nigeria. He's a Nigerian American, and he saw them on his plate because I made this for him, and he said, how do you know how to make dodos? And I said, no, these are not dodos, these are maduros or plátanos. And he said, no, these are dodos. And at that point I realized that we probably got our sweet plantains and the way we make them from Africa. And they were, as we began to unpack how we grew up and the foods that we shared, we saw many similarities. We make a very similar stewed chicken, and many of the things that make me think of my upbringing and my culture, which I find fascinating.
Yeah. And so is that as a result of the European slave trade and that coming across, or how is that? Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Most of the African influence in Latin America is because of slavery. Now, the slaves were not always allowed to live out their customs in religion, even in the way they ate. And so a lot of that got combined with the indigenous way of eating, which is also different throughout Latin America because the different groups had different ways of eating. So that's why Venezuelan food, Colombian food are different from Guatemalan or Mexican or even other parts of the Caribbean, because there were different tribes. But as that combination happened, there was also a European influence, and now we have a melting pot in our gastronomy. And as you can tell, I'm a foodie in that I like to eat. You want to try this one?
Let's do it.
Let's cut this other one in half.
Make the pocket.
Make the pocket.
All right.
And throw some of this deviled ham in it. None of this is spicy, by the way. Very savory. I feel like I'm in the food channel.
Yes.
Maybe that should be my side gig.
Right. Fit it in there. With all your spare time.
With all my spare time.
Oh, do I need to do butter? No butter on this one?
Try without, and then if you feel like you want it,
okay,
you can throw it in. And that's what once you know that you can combine this however you want, you can make them at home, and you know whatever you want to throw in it. Yeah. It's fine.
Bring your napkins when you're trying to rape us too.
Oh, so good.
There are spices in there though. It's not spicy, but there's a lot of flavor.
Yes. I absolutely love this. And this is something you can eat for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. If you ask me what time of the day is my favorite time to eat arepas, any time is good to eat arepas. I mean, I'm an arepa junkie. These are made differently in other cultures. In Colombia, they make them, but you usually put the filling on top. Sometimes they put it in the middle. There are also pupusas in Central America, and very similar concept.
Okay. I just love the name, pupusas.
Yeah. It's a very tasty name.
Yes. It's like the poo-poo platter.
I don't know you'll be able to put that in there.
You gotta get the potty humor in there.
No.
We have young kids at home, so like we got the potty humor is still very much.
It happens all the time.
Yes.
Yeah. What'd you think of the deviled ham?
It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got good spice to it.
Yeah.
You said that does have mayo in it, or doesn't?
It does not right now, but you can put mayo and make it even creamier. Now on this last one, we're gonna try it sweet, and for this one, I like to put in butter and jelly.
Butter and jelly.
Butter and jelly.
This is almost like the dessert side.
This is like the dessert. So, and we're gonna take a bite together, and let the taste fill your taste buds.
Okay.
And inform your mind and heart.
Is this too much?
No, you're fine.
All right.
Okay.
All right, ready for this?
Count of 3.
3,
2, 1.
I'm trying to let the flavor develop over time. That's good.
Yeah. It's kind of like coming out of left field. Like if you've had it salty, with the deviled ham, the ham and cheese, or some people use scrambled eggs,
It like
chicken.
dances back and forth. Like
Yes.
You get a little bit of the butter, a little bit of the
yeah.
jelly, a little bit of the corn.
Exactly.
Like dances back and forth.
That's right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Now this is mango juice, which you brought for me. So,
Yes.
salud.
Cheers. Salud. This is good. I love it.
And thanks for sharing this with me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for making it. This is good. Now we gotta go try the place in Fishers.
Oh yeah.
Kumako.
Fumago.
Did I say that right?
Yeah.
All right.
No, I don't know what I mean.
Not a word that you would know of, huh?
I forget what it is. It's a word that I used to know. I forget.
Okay.
I've not forgotten the language.
Right.
Just that particular word.
Okay.
And it happens when you move to another culture.
Yeah.
There are some things that you just forget.
Yeah. I think of like when I was a teacher at Carmel High School, and I had like 170 plus kids every semester, you know, and only some of those kids would like be with me the next semester. So it was like every semester I couldn't maintain all those names, so I would just lose it. Like I would see a kid in the hallway like the next year, and I'd be like, "Hey, you!" Like, I just couldn't keep. I knew their faces.
Guy?
Yeah, I knew their faces. I remembered things about them, but just their names, I couldn't just pull their names out like that. And if they said it, I'd be like, "Oh yeah." But I think when you're taking in so much information over time, like a whole different culture, a whole different language, you can totally see how that just kind of like I used to say, it like pushes the information out.
Yes.
Because you're like cramming more in.
Oh yeah. And it's an interesting process because there are some things you don't want to forget. And it's not a lot. I mean, I will always remember my culture and my language. But there are some things that do leave you, and so sometimes it's because there's a better word in your new language, or you're using a word for what would take you a phrase. Sometimes it's exactly what you're saying, is the exchange of one thing for the other. And when you go back, it's a difficult thing to realize. You don't want to show yourself as a foreigner in your own land.
Right.
But it happens so much. And the last time that I went to Venezuela, people were asking where I was from. And what they were hearing was a Cuban accent, because I had been living in Miami, and so my Spanish was becoming more like that of Cubans in South Florida.
Interesting. I notice that sometimes too. People tell me I have a twang when I'm talking to certain people. Or, I don't know.
A twang is a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was born and raised in Venezuela. My parents are from Colombia.
Okay.
So I grew up in a Colombian household, and I visited Colombia many times as a kid.
Okay. So you had Colombian culture, and you had Venezuelan culture. Then you come to America, and you've been from Indiana to Arkansas and Florida.
Florida, that's right.
So talk to me about like what has that taught you, and how do you bring that into trying to be the type of church that's diverse, that represents what heaven will be like? Tell me some more of your heart for that.
I think that it gives me a thirst to see that. And I never want to be the type of community that says we are already a multi-ethnic community or a diverse community. I want to say we're always pursuing it. It's almost like, in the sense, when you're talking about sanctification and holiness, there is an interesting dynamic between, or the dichotomy between, you're holy because Jesus has given you that holiness, but you still have to pursue it. And it's not an easy road. So the same thing, with diversity, because I'm a mutt, I do think I have a thirst to pursue diversity and multi-ethnicity in our communities, and also because my family is a very multi-ethnic family as well. And we look at our kids and we go, what kind of world are they going to grow in, or what are we communicating to them as a church? Because there is a mirroring that happens, especially early in life, when you look at people who are leading and you go, wow, they seem similar to me. Maybe I can do that. Right. The opposite happens too. I'm in this position as a follower, which is a great position, but if you only see leaders who don't represent who you are, then you may actually develop the idea that you can't ever be that. And I know this for a fact because I have had many people say that to me. I never knew this was a possibility for my life. In fact, for me, I went to Bible college thinking I was going to be a missionary in South America. It was my wife that asked me to apply at a church in northern Kentucky. And I applied just to see what the process would be like, not thinking that I would get the job at this church. Turns out I got the job, and it was an amazing season. And so that happens with our communities. Also, City of Indianapolis is becoming so diverse. We recently found out that every one of our campuses is surrounded by communities where at least 20% of the population of those communities are minorities and people from other nations. And so we have to catch up to that and reflect our communities, and even think of how our communities are going to look like in 5 to 10 years. Because the moment that we put in that work and we think we're there, we've been working toward this for 5 years or so. The community is still 5 or 10 years ahead of us in this sense. So we want to be able to communicate with the gospel that we preach and the gospel that we live, which is filled with love one another, that we are for all people.
Yeah, it's awesome to think that, because I've heard the phrase like, your church should look like the community that it's trying to reach. Like, if your church is successful in reaching the community outside of its walls, that who you see inside the walls should then reflect and look like the people you see outside the walls. And so to think about the fact that, over 20% of the people outside of our walls are people of different cultures, different backgrounds, different countries, and they're now in our community. Like, what a challenge for us to be able to be a church for all people.
That's right.
And to be welcoming to all types of people, and not communicate implicit or explicit way that there's certain value or certain welcoming, or you're welcome here, you're not welcome here, which is an incredible challenge. Because stepping through some of the steps we've taken to grow as a staff, and just our cultural awareness and being leaders for all types of people, there's so much to that for me, I guess, from the majority culture, it's not obvious to us where we're communicating that. So for us to be able to grow in that is a lot of times painful and uncomfortable. And so, but we got to do it, right? I mean, that's the vision that God has for us. And
and it's the process of sanctification. This is where I think we sometimes get confused. In many different communities and even churches around the country, we think that the growth toward becoming a multi-ethnic church or a diverse church shouldn't be painful. But so much of our faith is a painful process that leads to some sort of progress or promotion. And so we are running away from that pain. And it's a pain that not only people who are the majority in any church have to or will experience, but it's a pain that all people are experiencing, because wherever there is division, there is pain. And this is true in the natural, it's true with communities, it's true with marriages, and it's true with churches. And so in communities like the ones that we're in and that we want to build by the grace of God, there's going to be a process and a journey. And that's what I want to see here in Midtown, is that we say, yes, we want to go on that journey. What will it take? And we are doing cultural intelligence training for our staff, and many of the other things that are going to be happening over the next few months. But it really takes, at its core, it takes an invitation. It takes becoming friends with somebody who's not like you, and sharing a meal and learning about one another. Which is why food, it's such a great strategy. And so I think that's how we pursue that. And I'm just super passionate to see that. And that's what I want to see for the Midtown campus, is that we're able to do that. And our staff team is so diverse. And I'm just so proud of the fact that it's diverse, with people who represent the different communities that are in this area, and they are highly skilled at what they do. And so I never want to imply that we want to only have people who are minority as leaders. No, we want to have everyone leading together.
I think the phrase that came to mind is like, we've gotten where we are because we've done what we've done.
That's right.
And so if we want a different result, we've got to do different things, right? If we want a different type of future, we've got to do different things now to get there. And so that is going to be uncomfortable. That is going to take change and take courage. And, I think stepping into that, not running from it, like you said, stepping into that pain, that tension, and the results are messy.
Yeah.
And they're different, and like it's not always going to feel like what we're used to success looking like.
Yeah.
It was really enlightening for me when we went through some of the cultural intelligence training and just thinking about the book of Acts. And sometimes I've thought like the commands to love one another, submit to one another, live out all the one another's we sometimes call them in Scripture. Sometimes I'm like, that seems too simple, right? It seems too easy. But then when you put into it the kind of culture clashing that was going on at that time, the religious, cultural, socioeconomic challenges and differences that were alive in the church in Acts, that's where it's like, we put that lens on it, like, and it is different. It is hard. It's like, man, even just staying unified, even loving each other, even living in community together and doing life together would be challenging. And that's why it's a worthy calling. And that's why when the unbelievers, when people who didn't believe in Jesus, didn't believe in the church, saw it, they were like, what is that? Like, that's crazy.
Yes.
I don't see that anywhere else.
That's right.
So that demands attention. It makes you question and go like, why are they doing that? How do they do that? Should I be a part of that?
Yes.
And there's something in that they realize, I think intrinsically we realize we need.
That's why Jesus in John 17:21, he talks about it in the prayer that the disciples witnessed. He says, Father, that they may be one so that the world will know. And it's one of the few times in the New Testament when he gives us a strategy that we can use to reach people through that behavior, through that activity. And what he's saying is, in this countercultural, counterintuitive type of unity, it will create in the world a question. And Jesus, as the center of the church, is the answer to that question. And I think that's what he was praying. I don't think he was praying necessarily for the easy type of unity. I think he was praying for the hard type of unity. And so in modern terms, it's ethnicity, it's background, it's also political implications. And for people to see people who are different from one another in that sense, because of the love of Jesus, that is a huge testimony. It's a huge way of preaching this gospel that transcends political opinion, transcends culture and background, because it represents the incarnation of Jesus.
Yeah. Well, you said something like Jesus is the answer to the question it makes people ask, and I think 1 Peter 3:15, like, be ready to give an answer for the hope that you have, and like that assumes you're living life in such a way that it's questionable, that it makes people ask the question.
So good.
So yeah, it's great. So tell me a little bit, like, if you have a chance to just look in the camera and talk to the person that is thinking about coming to Midtown, they live in the Midtown area, and they're thinking about coming and checking out Traders Point Midtown, maybe even being a part of the core team to help make this thing happen, like, what would you say to that person?
I would say let's jump in. If you are in the Midtown area or anywhere in greater Indianapolis, we want you to join us, and we want together to be able to live out this commandment that Jesus gives us to love one another, to go and make disciples of all nations. And some of you may be asking, well, what does that mean in my life? Let's jump in together. Let's figure that out together as we work really hard to remove unnecessary barriers for people to know this kind of love that transcends everything.
Well, Alex, thanks so much for teaching me this, helping me experience Venezuelan food and learn about Venezuelan culture, and just sharing about your vision for Midtown Multicultural Church. It's been awesome. Just appreciate you making the time, man.
I appreciate you, bro. Thank you for everything.